everybody. Top of the Saturday morning. It is damn good to have you here. I'm Emerson Lotzi. This is Julian Edlow. You are watching The Sweat on DraftKings Network and VSiN, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time every Saturday and Sunday morning right here on your television or whatever you watch us on. We love the fact that you are here. You know who is not here? Steve Buchanan. He has yet to come home from Las Vegas after covering
a lot
the
of
Super
room
Bowl.
at the desk here. Very spacious. A lot of room for activities.
Yeah, there certainly is. And some of those activities we'll be doing on said desk today include talking college basketball. Your boy Bobby Reagan's going to join the show. What are you guys going to talk about? Maybe some...
It says college basketball right there.
Well, you also mentioned some NBA, correct? MLB preview. How about some sports book futures with Nick Fryer and Gary and Thorne? You used to be a baseball guy. I don't know what the hell happened there.
Red Sox under.
Yeah, that's what Steve said too. And the Cooligans, baby, because Messi and Miami underway, and the MLS season is going to have to do quite a bit to match the magic of 2023. But now that football is done, the horrific NBA All-Star break is now behind us. We got all eyes on college basketball. March Madness is almost here, which means we are deep inside February frenzy. Yeah, you're pretty
creative.
You're pretty excited about it. Yeah, shout out to producer Drew on that. I said let's do the Julian Edlow special because you're on like every block today talking college basketball.
I'm doing some heavy lifting. Take notes.
It's been a wild college basketball stretch here too, Jules. So upsets continued this past week, right? UConn became the first unanimous number one in the AP poll this season and then loses. And then number 3, Purdue, and then 4th ranked Arizona. With 24 of the 25 ranked teams in action here over the next 2 days, there could be even more chaos. So let's start with a top 11 matchup here. This is one that you have your eye on. We are talking Houston as a road favorite at Baylor. This is the first time now that the Bears have been underdogs since 2019. So which way are you leaning on this one?
Yeah, there are two clear-cut games of the day. This one being the first, tips off at noon Eastern, with Houston playing at Baylor for the first time, obviously, since Houston joined the Big 12 this season. So Houston's been a machine at home. They're 15-0 straight up, but they are 4-3 straight up and 1-6 against the spread on the road this season. Struggling a little bit more on the road. So Cougars been a little bit overpriced lately. Overall, including home games, they're on a 1-5 against the spread run. So very good team, little overpriced at the moment. This is going to be a super tough atmosphere. Baylor has that new building. If you've watched some of their home games on TV, people complain a little bit about the angle because it's literally just built straight up. It's like the fans are on top of you. So this has been a place that Baylor wins.
That sounds fun.
It is fun. That's why I'm betting Baylor. Baylor's 13-1 straight up at home. They're 9-5 against the spread in those games. Mentioned Houston kind of struggling against the spread lately. Baylor's been good overall, 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 games. So Baylor is in a perfect situational spot here. We like to go, back and forth, zigzag in college hoops. They played on the road at BYU this week. I forget if it was Tuesday or Wednesday night, but they played at BYU. Tough place to play. They're really good at home.
Provo, baby.
They dropped that game in Utah. Houston had a very big win this week. You remember one of those road losses that I mentioned, that was at Iowa State earlier in the year. They hosted Iowa State this week and won that game. So that was kind of a big spot for them at home to get that revenge on Iowa State, who's second behind them in the standings in the Big 12. Now we're looking at Baylor off the tough road loss, Houston off the big home win. We go early afternoon tip at Baylor in Waco. I like getting 2.5 points here with Waco.
Okay.
In Waco, getting the 2.5 with Baylor. I like them as home dogs here. I think they're going to win the game outright, but I will take the points.
They've got as you mentioned, strong home resumes. They beat Iowa State by 2, Texas Tech by 6, Oklahoma by 17.
Never underestimate home court in college hoops.
Yeah, especially in Waco. Anywho, then there's Alabama and Kentucky here, Julian. The same Kentucky team that has disappointed you time and time again. You said on this show...
They disappointed me once.
No,
they just disappointed me once for a lot of units.
You said every time you decide to bet them, they don't end up coming through. And then when you don't bet them, they do come through. That 5-unit bet you lost on the Wildcats a few weeks back, well, every time you think you're out, they pull you right back in. So why do this to yourself?
I still can't believe they didn't show up for that Gonzaga game. And they came back. They were down 10 at halftime. They were covering in the second half. They came back, and then they let go of the rope again. I don't know what happened in that one, particularly since Gonzaga is just not a good team. They came back and showed how good they can be the next Saturday. They're 8.5-point underdogs at Auburn. They win that game outright. Frankly, dominate that game. They had a perfect letdown spot this week. So I misgauged Kentucky twice in a row. They had a perfect letdown spot this week at LSU. Lost that game at the buzzer. I finally got my bearings right. I bet LSU. I took the points within that one. Just an awful spot for Kentucky off the huge Auburn win. Looking ahead to Alabama today, and they dropped that one. So, like Baylor losing during the week, this sets up a perfect bounce back spot for the Wildcats at home. So, credit to Alabama. They've taken some really tough road and neutral games earlier in the season, but they are just 6-6 straight up, 5-7 against the spread when playing away from home. That includes road and neutral. Historically, really tough place to play when Alabama goes to Lexington. They're just 1-9 in their last 10 trips playing on the road at Kentucky. Now, I will admit, Kentucky has not protected its home court very well this year, like the Gonzaga game. They're just 11-4 straight up, which is not good by their standards at home, 7-8 against the spread. But Kentucky does respond well to losses, and they lost outright. They had a chance to win and not cover, but they wound up losing outright at LSU. Kentucky is 5-2 against the spread off an outright loss this season.
Ooh.
Perfect spot off the big Auburn win and then the LSU letdown, and you got Alabama on the opposite end of that spectrum, just like Houston, getting a big win that they needed. Alabama got that home win in overtime that they needed to claw out against Florida in the SEC. So now you got to go on the road after the big home overtime win. I like Kentucky a lot. I got them early on the money line. You can still get them for minus 140 range. The total in this game is going to be talked about a lot as well.
What's that?
It's nearing 180. These teams are combined 37-15 to the over this season.
Hell, they score the basketball, baby.
Alabama, number 1 in the nation. They average 91 points per game. Kentucky's 3rd in the nation, 87.6 points per game. I'm not going to mess with the total. If these teams go cold for a couple minutes, lock in on defense, it's going to be tough to get there. Kentucky's kind of been focusing in on defense a little bit more recently. Alabama tired legs off the overtime. I'm not going to get involved, but the total is going to be a popular talking point at least today.
Well, after a full week of rest, you got Kansas hosting Texas. So both these teams entering this game with a bit of momentum and coming off wins here. Which side do you fall on the DK Sportsbook?
Yeah, Texas has been a tough team to read all season. They've been back and forth game to game. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. They're coming off a win.
So that means a loss then today.
Good job.
Yeah!
They didn't cover at home against K-State. Now, they're 3-4 straight up and against the spread on the road. Why does it mean a loss here? Because Kansas doesn't lose at home. Kansas business as usual, 13-0 straight up at home. But they are 6-1 ATS. So they're coming off a big road win at Oklahoma. They had to come back in the second half. They've had all week off. They didn't play this week. So they've had a lot of time to prep.
Yeah, relaxing, rest the legs a little bit.
This one went down to 6, popped back up to 8.5. I can't lay 8.5. With Kansas in this spot. If it was 6 or less, I would say go for it. Now they're a money line parlay piece. We have a couple other good teams in good spots today. So Kansas is going to win this game. I'm not laying more than 6.5 points in this game.
Is it a big deal that Texas just held Kansas State to 56 points?
I think that speaks more to K-State on the road. And K-State, little look towards the future here, in a good spot to bounce back at home today.
All right. Wake Forest 11-6 against the spread at home, has a key ACC matchup with Duke on Saturday. So Duke is actually a road underdog today. Is that correct?
They are. I think the public's going to like Duke a lot. Number 8 in the nation going up against an unranked team. You're getting points. Duke's been nails on the road, too. They're 6-3 straight up, 4-1 ATS. They've been better lately, too. They've won 6 of their last 7 on the road. So a lot to like about a Duke team that's kind of getting it together. If there's a spot they slip up the rest of the way, this feels like the spot. Recently, Duke beat Wake at home, and now they're playing their 3rd straight road game for the first time this season. They haven't played 3 road games in a row all year. This is the only time they do that. So really the question is this the spot it all catches up against a Wake Forest team that is 14-0 straight up at home? They're 11-3 against the spread at home. Wake has been a tremendous home team. So for me, Not as confident as some of my other plays today. I think the betting splits really suggest Wake Forest today.
Well, dude.
But I will go Wake on the money line here. They have not lost at home yet. And again, I think the part that's being maybe overlooked here is that it's a third straight road game for Duke. You don't do that much in college hoops. It's usually 2, and you go back home. Now, it's against Wake Forest. They are home. They're probably just waking up in their own beds, taking a bus to this game. But I like Wake.
Unless, they slept at a friend's house or something like that, or on a buddy's couch last night, but I'm sure they did.
They
I'm
probably
sure
don't sleep on a buddy's couch the night before. This isn't you and a UCF intramural rugby game.
Yeah, well, that was a club. It was also a intramural floor hockey champion at UCF, but we don't have enough time for that. Yeah, but you nailed it, though, with the Demon Deacons being so good at home. I mean, they played 33-point win over Pitt, 29-point win over Cuse, 25-point win over Louisville, which all happened in 3 of their last 4 home games, too.
30% of the bets for 55% of the handle, Wake -2.
Yeah.
26% of the bets for 52% of the handle, Wake money line. Pretty sharp.
Love it, babe. All right, we'll return to February Frenzy in just a moment. But following this 3-minute break, Jalen Brunson and the Knicks aiming to slow down the top-seeded and smoking hot Celtics. Which side Jules is backing will not surprise you, or maybe it will. right, folks, not 1, not 2, but 3 NBA games on the slate today. Magic, Pistons, Celtics, Knicks, Nets, Timberwolves. Maybe that's because the league scheduled most teams for back-to-backs coming right out of the horrible All-Star break. Man, they made them work right off the bat, huh?
A lot of back-to-backs. Also a very good Sunday card in the NBA, so we'll touch that. tomorrow on the show. Plenty of
Look
good
at
games
you
there.
teasing ahead 24 hours
Yeah,
from
we have
now,
a show
buddy.
tomorrow. Also, probably don't want to compete with one of the better college basketball cards of the year, which we're going to hit on all show.
Yeah, that's right, because it's not March Madness. We're calling it February.
Frenzy, I believe, is the word.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. So the game on this slate that really has your attention, and probably the attention of all NBA fans out there, because it's the best one. It's the Celtics at the Knicks here. Celtics have won 7 straight, dude. They're the top seed by far in the East. In New York is an absolute shambles at the moment. So what is your approach to betting this game today, Jules?
I wouldn't say the Knicks are in shambles. Like, they're... OG and Randall are out. They're hoping to
Which
get
has
them
been
back.
a problem for them.
But they got DiVincenzo, Hartenstein, and Bogdanovich back in the first game out of the break. They hammered the Sixers in that first game back. So, like, they played well out of the break, at least.
Is a blowout likely in the cards here when Boston visits MSG?
So I do like the Celtics here. Coming off the win in Chicago. So the Knicks are playing really well. The Celtics are just playing better. And I think in spots that they want to show up, the Celtics are going to show up. So it's the Saturday night primetime 8:30 ABC game. I think you're going to get the best out of them at MSG. This is a game that Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, that they're going to want to show up for. A revenge narrative, Porzingis back at MSG. I just think the Celtics, as the more talented team, are in a pretty good spot here to show out. Maybe the injuries do catch up with the Knicks a little bit.
Boston's, 3-0 against them this season? 2 of those wins?
They struggled a lot with New York last year. They've been a lot better this year.
Yeah, I can look at the team and say, yeah, they're pretty good with how much they've been winning basketball games. In terms of, so we're out of the All-Star break, as we've mentioned. In terms of second half storylines here, what is sitting on the long list of Julian Edlow's second half storylines list for the NBA? What sits at the top of that?
Yeah, I think in the East, like, the Celtics clearly stand out, and who's going to be that second team to challenge them? The Sixers have been really good, but with Embiid on the shelf long term, is it going to be them? I would say the story is really,
Are you still betting them to miss the playoffs, by the way, 76ers?
I mean, I gave that as a...
At the time, it was a great bet. I mean, maybe it's changed now.
Plus 500, I gave it out as a, something for at a long price that is worth looking at.
Okay.
I have not bet it yet, but I think there's a chance. But for me in the East, it's like, can Milwaukee, because I don't think it's going to be Cleveland, New York that can ultimately challenge the Celtics. Can Milwaukee get it together? They bounced back and beat the Wolves on the road as dogs on Friday night, a game they kind of needed to prove it to themselves out of the break with Doc Rivers being whatever he was, 3-7, I think, as Milwaukee's head coach entering the break. So do the Bucks get it together in the East is a storyline for me. And then out West, do the heavyweights catch up to these younger teams? Do the Clippers, the Nuggets overtake the Thunder and the Wolves in the standings, things like that? Or are those teams going to wind up being the regular season teams with the best record, and then will the Clippers, Nuggets, teams like that overtake them in the postseason? I think the storyline is just kind of how the standings are going to shake out West. And a couple of teams like the Lakers and Warriors, who I think we're going to talk about, are they going to be involved in the postseason bracket, because that changes a lot?
Yeah, for sure. So, right now, who's got the best shot of winning an NBA title? I think a lot of people say, it's the Celtics, but we've seen, especially being based here in Boston, you being a big Celtics guy, that, you can't really necessarily lock that in. Who's got the best shot of making sure the Celtics don't win the NBA title?
I think it's teams from the West. I don't see that competition right now in the East. Maybe the Bucks can get there, but I'll take the Celtics healthy against anyone in the East pretty confidently. So if it's Milwaukee, if it's Philly, if it's New York, Cleveland, if it's Miami, and again, Miami's been the team that has played them in a Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals back-to-back years. Each team has won one. The road team won each of them. You got to take Miami seriously by now. I'll take the Celtics, what I'm waiting for is to see if the Celtics enter the postseason healthy. If everybody's healthy for Boston entering the postseason, the Celtics at even money or better to win the East is my favorite bet. That'll be a very big bet for me. They're going to run through the East and show up in the NBA Finals. The question is, you asked where that competition comes from. It comes from the West. Jokic and the Nuggets, that's a matchup nightmare kind of. Jokic is a nightmare for everybody. Clippers came into Boston on the second night of a back-to-back and walloped to the Celtics.
Clippers have
in January.
second best title odds behind the Celtics right now.
Again, same concerns, but if the Clippers are healthy, they're a team. And I think the Warriors are a good bet to make the playoffs. If the Warriors were to get there, they're on a 11-4 run since coming back out of that pause and play when they had that tragedy with the assistant coach passing away.
Yes.
They're 11-4 since resuming play. If they can get it together and get in, they're a good team.
All right, so if it ends up being, and it looks like right now it could be, the Lakers and Warriors for the play-in game, would it be the 9-10 right now? You like the chances of the Warriors making it more than the Lakers?
I think Golden State has a better chance to move up in the standings. Like, I don't necessarily think Lakers-Warriors is going to be a play-in matchup. And we've had it before in the past, and maybe we get it again. And, you got one game, LeBron versus Curry. Anything can happen. But I think the Warriors in that plus 120 range to make the postseason is a pretty good bet. I just told you they're 11-4 over their last 15 games. If they keep playing at this clip, they're going to move up the standings. They're gonna pass some of these teams, like the Lakers, that are ahead of them. They just got that heads-up win over the Lakers. So I like the way Golden State's playing. I think that they've kind of recaptured whatever they lost earlier in the season. Draymond is back a little more level-headed. Clay is slowly buying into coming off the bench. Jonathan Kuminga has stepped up to being a really key player for them. So Golden State to make the postseason, whether it's climbing all the way to 6, which is maybe more unlikely, or getting themselves in better position to win some play-in games, I think that the Warriors are tough to go against right now.
What has your attention when we look at division races right now?
So division races, let me pull up and see if the price has moved at all, but I'm going to the Southwest.
Okay.
Pelicans lost to the Heat last night. They're now 1-1 out of the break.
That game got chippy, too.
Yep. Mavericks got a good win over the Suns out of the break. Let me see here. Dallas plus 170 was my bet coming out. It's already down to 120, so it's moved a lot. But anything plus
people listening
money,
to you.
Probably right. Dallas, anything plus money. New Orleans has the 12th ranked strength of schedule coming out. Dallas is 21st the rest of the way. So easier schedule, and we know they can we've seen New Orleans fall apart, those injuries. Ingram in the past, Zion in the past, and I like what Dallas did at the deadline, bringing in a guy like P.J. Washington and getting Grant Williams out of there. I think Dallas is a little bit more equipped to make a run down the stretch, and New Orleans, while I like them, a little bit harder to trust. If they come undone a little bit, they're like a half game apart in the standings. There's no reason this shouldn't just be a pick to win the division, but we're getting some good plus money on Dallas. So I do like the Mavericks to come out of that division.
What about conference seeding here, too? So on the DK Sportsbook, looks like probably because the East is essentially locked up already, but NBA
7.5 game lead.
Yeah.
Celtics. They're like
that would be an epic collapse.
They came off the board at like minus 2,000. Minus 2,500, the best record in the.
So unless there's some epic late season meltdown, that's probably not coming back. Anywho, number one seed in the Western Conference though right now. This is pretty damn tight. OKC plus 200 odds to land that number one seed. Timberwolves at plus 220, and then there are the Clippers there at plus 320. The Nuggets at plus 360. Then there's a massive drop off. So it looks like those four guys are really it's a 4-horse race for that top seed in the West.
Yes. So the Pelicans are the 5 seed right now, and they're 5.5 games back of the 1. But if you go up to those top 4 seeds, they're all within a game and a half of each other. Wolves and Thunder are both 39-17, identical records. And then right below them, Clippers 37-18, a game and a half back. Nuggets 38-19, a game and a half back. 1 seed is totally up in the air. So I'm not betting this market because I think it's too close. You have 4 teams. You know if you're betting 1, you got 25% chance, essentially, if we call it a heads up, of picking the winner. Now, what I will say, OKC and Minnesota have proven to be pretty good regular season teams, but it would not surprise me if they came undone a little bit down the stretch, so I don't mind. And I would say Denver, coming off the championship, maybe they don't need their foot on the gas as much. So if you made me bet one, it would be the Clippers plus 320. I like the way they're playing. They've been making up a ton of ground recently, so I think they can continue to make up ground. The question is, do the Wolves and Thunder both come undone? Because you need them both to kind of fall a little bit. Maybe it's just one of them.
Really quickly before we go to break, where are we at in the MVP race here.
I mean, Jokic is ahead in the straw poll. I still like taking long shots. Kawhi, I think the Clippers are going to
Kawhi's
get the
plus
1 seed.
7,000 right now.
Kawhi 70-1. That's, I guess, if I had to bet one, that's who I'd
Luka's down to plus 650, by the way.
playing well, and the Mavericks are going to win the division, of course.
Indeed. All right, February Frenzy returns after this break. Number 13, Alabama can take a major step towards claiming back-to-back SEC regular season titles with the win over Kentucky today. Welcome back to a Saturday morning edition of The Sweat. Welcome back to February Frenzy.
How many times are you gonna
Let's
say
go,
that?
my fellow meat wagon. So here we're going to rip through some SEC, ACC, Pac-12 plays.
Only 2 C's in ACC.
Did I give it an extra C? I feel like I just had a stroke, but that's okay. At least everyone was able to witness it with me. By the way, March Madness right around the corner. And guess what we have here on the Sweat? A little NCAA tournament special. So go ahead. Put it on your calendar right now if you're still one of those folks who still fills out a calendar manually, or put it in your iPhone, smartphone, whatever it is. Monday night, March 18th, 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock Eastern time. It's going to be a fun show, and you are going to be talking a lot throughout those 3 hours.
I am going to be talking a lot. Obviously, that's the day after Selection Sunday, day before the first 4 games, and then we got the 4 days of madness, so a lot of good stuff.
I cannot wait for that. I cannot wait for this segment in which we have 10 minutes left, and you will be filling a lot of that with hot air, and we will start in the SEC. Kind of a game you touched on a little bit earlier, Jules. Now, Kentucky has dropped 4 home games already this season, so they're in jeopardy of matching that nasty record of 6 losses inside Rupp that was established back in the 88-89 season originally. But you are sticking with Kentucky here, and there are expected to be points galore in this game.
Yeah, touched on it earlier, touching on it now. Touching on it later when we have Barstool Reegs on, who's a Kentucky guy. I want to get his opinion on this game.
Professional teaser over here.
So this game, Alabama going on the road. We got 13 at 17. Situational spot. Credit to Alabama. They've taken on some tough games away from home, both neutral and away. They're 6-6 straight up, 5-7 against the spread when they travel away from Tuscaloosa. When they go to Lexington, it has historically been a very tough place for Alabama to play. They're 1-9 in their last 10 trips to play at Rupp. So, problem is Kentucky, as you alluded to there, Emerson, has not protected Rupp very well. They're 11-4 straight up there. Sounds good, but not by Kentucky standards at home. You see against the spread, they're below 500, 7-8 ATS. What I like here is that Kentucky's coming off a loss, and I'll admit it took me a while to catch up to Kentucky and get them right. I got them wrong in a big way at home against Gonzaga. I still cannot believe that one. And then got them wrong again going to Auburn. I got them right in a terrible spot going on the road Tuesday night to play LSU. LSU won that game outright. They were as high as 7-point dogs at times in that game. Off a loss, Kentucky is 5-2 against the spread this season. They bounce back very well. They're at home against Bama, and Bama is in a bad spot. They're off a big emotional win at home against Florida. They were big favorites. They didn't cover. They were kind of fortunate to get the game to overtime and won it outright in overtime without covering a pretty big number. So I think it's a great situational spot for Kentucky here. We've seen the number grow towards Kentucky. I bet them on the opener on the money line, and I would stand by that. And again, I'll just say the total is going to be a big talking point today.
Yeah, it is.
Bama averages 91 a game, leads the nation. Kentucky's third, 87.6 points per game. These teams are a combined 37-15 to the over this year. I would just be careful with a total this high because all it takes is one cold stretch from the field, and you're probably going to stay under.
And the SEC regular season title race, it's heating up. Really, just a few days ago, it was Auburn and Alabama really were in the driver's seat to have that perfect path to like an Iron Bowl SEC tournament championship rematch. However, the Tigers falling to Kentucky at home, throwing a small wrench into that plan. This is going to be the first meeting today between Auburn and Georgia. First meeting of the season. Yes, they're going to play each other twice in the last 2.5 weeks here. What do you like in this game?
Yeah, so Auburn, obviously at home, gets smoked by Kentucky as a pretty big favorite. Didn't look very good. They had the whole week off. They didn't play a game this week, so they've probably been hearing it from Bruce Pearl in practice. Georgia just so happens, we got to go. I like home teams in college hoops. We got Auburn on the road here. Georgia just so happens to be that team in the way. So Auburn is 4th in the nation in first half point per game margin. They lead generally by almost double digits at halftime. 9.9 points per game is their lead, or their first half margin. They have a +4 point per game margin in road games. So I'm looking at Auburn first half here to come out angry, avenge that loss to Kentucky. I'll lay, I think the game is 7.5. I'm trying to bring up the first half here. I think it's 4. So I will lay 4 with Auburn in the first half and say that they take a healthy lead into halftime against Georgia.
South Carolina, Ole Miss. Here's a rematch of an exciting battle from back on February 6th. We have this on our hands. It is in Oxford. Take it away with your bet du jour.
I haven't played anything in this game. I lean pretty strong to Ole Miss. Number has grown. Maybe too many to lay at this point. But again, we have, if Josh Applebaum were here, he would be saying an unranked home favorite over a ranked team. You got to bet it. South Carolina has been a huge surprise this season, but it seems that they are finally regressing. They have lost 2 in a row, one game getting smoked by Auburn, one kind of getting let down by LSU in a narrow
and Ole
loss.
Miss is like firmly on the bubble here.
Firmly, yeah. So they're South Carolina is also 1-3 against the spread in their last 4 games, so slipping a little bit. Ole Miss is off a tough rival loss to Mississippi State, and they've lost 4 of 5, yet they're still favored here over the 20th team in the nation. I'm going to buy into the South Carolina regression. Things have just been too good for them. I would like to lay like 2.5 here. It's more than that, but strong lean to Ole Miss at home.
All right, Duke, Wake, you touched on this earlier. What can you add to what you said at the top of this show? You have Duke as a road underdog, and you actually like the home team in this situation.
Well, I can't add anything, but I can repeat what I said because a lot of people are probably just tuning in.
That's true.
Going Wake at home, Wake on the money line here. They are 14-0 straight up at home this season. They have been tremendous at home. 11-3 against the spread in those games. Demon Deacons have been fantastic at home. And it's a little bit of a revenge spot. Duke recently beat Wake at Cameron Indoor. What I really like about this game, so Duke, I can't say anything bad about Duke. They're playing really well. They've been awesome on the road, 6-3 straight up, 4-4-1 ATS, and they've been improving. 6 of their last 7 games on the road, they have won. So there's a lot of things to like about Duke. I get it. What makes this spot so difficult that I'll just keep pressing on is that it's their 3rd straight road games. A lot of teams don't even play 3 straight road games this season, but they've won them. Now they're playing a 3rd in a row, and I know the reason this is on the schedule is because they don't have to travel. They don't have to get on a plane. They sleep in their own beds. They go. It's a local game at Wake.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it is still a 3rd straight road atmosphere, and I think it's going to be a tough one for Duke. I like Wake on the money line.
All right, let's get to the ACC or the ACCC, as I referred to it earlier. Fresh off their worst loss of the season, you got Pitt looking to rebound against Virginia Tech. Both sides clinging to NCAA tournament odds right now, Jules.
Yeah, I'll be quicker here so we can try and rip through the rest of the games in this segment. Pitt, Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is off a huge win over UVA. They blew them out, that state rivalry game, but they're going on the road now. They're just 1-7 straight up, 1-7 against the spread on the road. Pitt was 5-0 straight up and against the 5-0 straight up and ATS in their last 5, but they got mopped by Wake earlier in the week by like 30, 40 points. Perfect bounce back spot for the Panthers at home.
All right, take me here then to Utah, Colorado.
Utah, Colorado. Utah has been really poor on the road. They're 2-6 straight up and against the spread, but they're coming off a huge road win at UCLA that was kind of fluky down the stretch, required some late heroics. Prior to that, Utes were just 1-5 straight up in the last 6, 1-6 against the spread in their last 7. Now another tough road game, tough place to play. Colorado's 13-1 straight up at home, 9-5 against the spread. Buffs are just 1-5 ATS in their last 6, but they've had the full week off after a 2-game road trip. I would either lay it with the Buffs or it's a nice money line parlay piece to put with a Kansas or an Illinois or something like that today.
Did you have anything? Because I skipped over UNC Virginia.
You did skip UNC Virginia. I have not bet anything yet. If I do, it's going to be Virginia +3. UNC's finally looking human. They're 3-3 in their last 6, alternating wins and losses. Now they're off a win over Virginia Tech. You caught on to this trend earlier that means a loss comes after a win when they've been alternating.
Look at me, baby.
Very good by you.
Big beefy brain on Brad.
UNC historically poor against UVA. They haven't won in Charlottesville since 2012. They're 0-10 against the spread, their last 10 on the road at UVA. If you want to include all games, including Chapel Hill, they're just 3-9 straight up and against the spread in their last 12 in this matchup. Virginia's 14-1 straight up at home, 10-5 against the spread in those games. And again, you got the embarrassing loss by UVA earlier in the week. Strong bounce back spot at home.
All right, we got to get to Washington State and Arizona State before the break here, because both you and I are kind of feeling maybe Washington State as a long shot for the NCAA tournament, huh?
They're not going to win it all, but they're worth taking a ticket on.
Well, you don't know
so
that,
you can buy.
Jules.
I do know that. But
Okay.
they're worth getting a ticket on so you can buy off them potentially down the stretch. Washington State is in prime position to win the Pac-12, but they're off that massive win over Arizona on the road on Thursday night. Quick turnaround, second game of the road trip. Probably not going to be as kind to them, so I have nothing terrible to say about Washington State other than how bad the spot is. Arizona State's 4-1 ATS in their last 5 games. Sun Devils play well as dogs. They're 5-9 outright as dog this season. 3-0 against the spread as a home dog, covering by 8.3 points per game.
My man is a machine. So we're going to give him the next block off. Nathan McKinnon, Austin Matthews, breaking ... hearts. See what we did there? Major matchup in the Mile High. Let's break it down. The rest of the NHL slate coming up. All right, everybody, it's time to put this sweaty show on ice, which may be tough with these two hot tamales. Jeff Ulrich of DK Network, NHL.com's Pete Jensen here for some opening face-off. Breaking down a 13-game hockey slate this evening, one that's highlighted here, Jeff, by a star-filled matchup of the Mile High. Toronto's Austin Matthews on a historic pace for goals scored. He's sitting at 52. Nathan MacKinnon kind of flying under the radar here. Second most points in the league with 93 right meow. Trying to win his first scoring title, by the way. What's impressed you the most between these two guys this season?
I think McKinnon's, consistency is obviously pretty impressive. I think the Avalanche have had some injuries. They've kind of gone up and down the lineup. Their goaltending has been hot and cold, but, McKinnon's just been straight fire pretty much from the start of the season. He's kept the Colorado Avalanche in contention for the number one seed out in the West. And like you said, he's now in contention for the scoring race. Obviously he's benefited a little bit from Connor McDavid missing a few games, but certainly if he keeps up this pace, it's going to be a hard guy not to give the Hart Trophy to. He's never won it. I think voters kind of want to side with him. And like I said, like Colorado, obviously having a better season than Tampa Bay too with Kucherov. So to me, I would lean McKinnon. Matthews obviously having a great season again, but always just look at Toronto. They're hot and cold, and Matthews obviously beating up on some weaker teams of late. We'll see if it lasts. If it does, certainly Austin Matthews could end up as the favorite for the Hart by the end of the year.
Hey, Pete, Nathan MacKinnon, you think this is the year he finally lands that Art Ross trophy?
Could happen. He has at least a point in every single home game this year, 27. So that is ridiculous. Nothing I've ever seen before covering the league. But Matthews, we're living in this guy's world right now. 52 goals in 55 games. Not many people realize the magnitude of what he's doing, not only this season, but in his career. I just looked it up. Third in NHL history in goals per game behind Mike Bossy and Mario Lemieux. That's ahead of Wayne Gretzky, ahead of Alex Ovechkin. Really, truly incredible stuff what he's putting together. And I guess it's not just weaker opponents, right? The guy has like 5 hat tricks this year. He's doing it against everybody, and he's probably going to keep it going against the Avs here. Yeah,
I know, but so like him tickling the twine though also won't be super easy tonight because there is Alexander Georgiev between the pipes for Colorado, right? So it's like you have this elite offense against this really damn good defensive team. Tied for the NHL lead in wins, by the way, Georgiev is. We are talking a potential Stanley Cup preview here. So which team are you going to give the upper hand to tonight, Pete?
Well, the thing about Georgiev that concerns me is the workload, 47 games. We still have a third of the season to go about, and he only has an .899 save percentage. So when you consider that, Colorado, despite its nearly immaculate home record this season, 22-5 with no overtime or shootout losses. They are vulnerable if he can't even get you a .900 save percentage. So maybe it's going against the grain a little bit, but I like what Toronto is doing during this stretch. Ever since Morgan Rielly got suspended for his actions in that game against Ottawa, they've won 6 in a row since then. Now they have Rielly back on their first power play. So keep the good times rolling, perhaps, with Matthews and these Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll see if it amounts to something in the playoffs, but here and right now, they're a dangerous team, and they'll at least get back into the postseason at this rate.
Jeff, how interested are you to see what wins out here, like Colorado's defensive play or the offense of the Maple Leafs here?
Well, I'm super interested. As Pete said, it could be a Stanley Cup preview. Obviously, that's a lot of things have to happen between now and then, but you're kind of going against the grain, whatever side you pick here. Toronto's one of the best road teams in the league. They're 17-6 straight up this year. Colorado's 22-5 straight up at home. But I think Pete makes really good points. The Colorado defense is definitely deeper, and I do worry a little bit about the Leafs defense holding up, but they're getting Rielly back. It's really just, I don't want to bet against the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, I think is the biggest thing. I really won't be shocked whichever team wins here. I think it's going to be a semi-closer, higher scoring game. But yeah, if you're asking which team I'm going to take, I'm going to take the Leafs. I'm just going to take the team that's full of confidence right now. I think the Leafs are the team that's peaking. I don't know if they're going to be peaking when we get to the playoffs, but right now I do think this is just not a team that you should be going out actively betting against. And I think that there's enough concerns with the Avalanche goaltending here that I would lean the Leafs on Saturday night as well.
And Ulrich, speaking of prolific goal scorers here, so Ovi has 8 goals now in his last 9 games, 56 behind Gretzky. So the Caps are in Sunrise tonight against the Panthers. Florida hasn't given up more than 2 goals in the last 12 games now. How much do you expect Washington's offense to struggle in this one?
I expect it to struggle a lot. I mean, Washington's been better of late. Absolutely, give them credit. But, the Panthers are just a really tough team. You cannot get much wider in terms of the gap between 5-on-5 play here. Panthers are one of the most dominant 5-on-5 teams in the league. They're right up there in XGF percentage. Capitals are one of the worst. And you just look at this matchup over the last few years, it has really played out just like that. Capitals have dropped 8 in a row to Florida over the last 3 years. And I just don't see things changing. Yes, Washington's playing well. Ovechkin certainly playing better and great for him. Obviously, we're going to be on Gretzky watch probably at this time next year in terms of the goal scoring. But I don't like the Panthers. To me, I think they're the best team in the East right now. I really do. And certainly Washington playing well, but this is just another level for me. So no, I expect Washington to struggle in this one. I think Panthers probably pick up another one.
Yeah, we are talking about the Caps riding a 3-game win streak here, Pete. Come on now.
Yeah, I'm not going to overlook that team in a single game, especially when you consider on Thursday it was a 1-0 win for the Hurricanes against the Panthers. Those may very well be the 2 best teams, not only in possession style, but also in the Eastern Conference overall. So a total dogfight. Carolina came out on top with that late goal. So I'm interested to see if Matthew Tkachuk and or Gustav Forsling plays on Saturday, because they were both banged up and left after the first period on Thursday. So keep an eye on that storyline. If one or both of those guys is out, maybe continue to go against the grain and ride the hot hand with Washington, either against the puck line or something like that, because they've been competitive lately and scoring goals. They have the 3rd fewest goals per game in the league at large this season, but 15 goals in their past 3 games, not too shabby.
All right, Pete, we got Bruins in Vancouver, top 2 teams in each conference there. Then you got the Stars in Carolina. Which meeting is more likely to be a Stanley Cup matchup?
I would say probably the Dallas one with Carolina.
Okay.
I'm not a full believer in the Canucks, and I think we're starting to see it now with a stretch of 4 straight losses. And again, they're going to be in there nitty gritty with whoever they play in that Pacific Division in the playoffs, whether it's Vegas, who's dealing with injuries, or, obviously the Kings are inconsistent, but can beat anybody. The Oilers are really strong this year. So it's going to be tough in that Pacific Division. I've been talking about it all season, that the road is going to be difficult for a team like Vancouver. So I would lean with Dallas. They're sliding right now, but they're super deep, maybe the deepest team in the whole league in terms of their secondary scoring. And then Carolina, again, Svechnikov, if he's healthy, Freddie Anderson, he's healthy. Those 2 guys being healthy in the postseason could put that team over the top. Remember last year they were missing so many guys. They still got to the conference finals, and they lost to Florida in a sweep, but every game was a 1-goal game and all those overtime games and everything like that. So I'm still a believer in the Hurricanes and the Stars.
And Jeff, let's remind ourselves here too, Boston experienced last spring how basically anything can happen once the postseason begins.
Yeah. It's funny. I would probably lean Boston over Carolina, but I can't really make a super hard case for Vancouver. Great year. I think they've got a lot of great runway in front of them in terms of what they're going to do in the future. But man, it's hard. First time, being in this position, going into the playoffs, you're going to have to deal with Colorado, probably Edmonton, and Dallas as well. I think Dallas, they're a little bit too up and down for me, but certainly I would take them over Vancouver. I think that the goaltending is extremely even between those 2 teams, but the experience factor up front with guys like Pavelski, Sagan, just anchoring that sort of forward group, and then obviously higher end players like Robertson. I would take Dallas over Vancouver. Carolina, I just don't know if they have the sort of top end talent to get it there. It's just been a 5-year story with these guys. We keep waiting for them to break through. I would take Boston over them, but certainly if you're asking me which matchup I would favor, I would favor Stars Carolina. Carolina will at least get themselves in the mix again. And like Pete said, If Anderson and Svechnikov show up, maybe this is finally their year.
All right, I'm going to give you about 10 seconds each here. Your favorite forward to play a DFS tonight. Go ahead, Pete.
I will say Frank Vetrano. Not many people realize how good he's been. Top 20 in the league in goals this year. 4-game point streak with 7 points in the span, and also a sprinkle on the Maple Leafs with Bobby McMahon and how hot that guy's been over his past 4 games. Good value pick.
Jeff.
Connor McDavid's playing the Flames tonight. 53 points in 39 career games against Calgary. Multiple hat tricks. Yeah, we'll just go there.
All right, boys. Appreciate it, Jeff. We'll talk more hockey and golf with you on tomorrow's show. As for what's next on today's show, we're dishing out more best bets around the world of college basketball. Stick with us here on The Sweat.
Welcome back to The Sweat here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. I'm Julian Edlow. We're going to keep talking some college hoops, and for the occasion, we are bringing in a guest, Bobby Regan. You can find him on Twitter at Barstool Reegs. Covers everything college hoops over there at Barstool Sports. Reegs, fun to have you on, man. I'm glad that we can finally do this. Barstool and DraftKings, obviously in the news a little bit, and now we can start collaborating on some content.
Yeah, man, I'm happy to join. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and I am pretty excited for this slate today. You know, early in the week, I always check out the Saturday card, and I was like, okay, I like this, I like that. And as the week has gone on, this is one of the Saturdays that I will probably have the most bets of this entire college basketball season. So I've been ripping through them all show. I want to get more of your takes in this segment. And I know you're a Kentucky guy, so we're going to start right there with one of the two games of the day. I have been teeing this one up as my biggest bet of the season was Kentucky against Gonzaga. I don't think Gonzaga is very good. I really thought they were going to come through in that spot. Second half, it looked like they were going to come through in that spot, and they let go of the rope again. Then they go on the road and blow everyone's mind in that Auburn game. What team are we going to get here from Kentucky? Do you like them against Alabama, who's coming off that, emotional overtime home win over Florida?
I mean, if you're a line movement guy, I saw on DraftKings, it opened as a pick last night. It's now Kentucky minus 2.5 at 9 in the morning. It's hard for me to separate Kentucky from the heart to the head. Like, I try to as much as possible when it comes to gambling. But like, I went to Kentucky. I'm a Kentucky guy through and through. So yeah, in my head, it's sitting there going, "There's no way Kentucky loses another home game." Like, at some point that they have to win this. I do think it's key. Alabama's down, probably their best defender, at least perimeter defender. Kentucky's defense seems to have taken a turn. I know that the LSU game, but that was a lot of free throws in the second half. But I saw they're ranked. If you take out from the last 2 weeks when some schematics have changed, they're 5th on adjusted defense in the country. That's a drastic change from what they've been in the past.
Yeah.
I would say I wouldn't lay the 2.5 because of these offenses, right? If you're playing something, I would play money line because you're asking for a late Alabama 3 to get inside the number or something like that. I honestly think the under might be the play. It's 179.5 the last time I saw, which I believe is the highest.
Went up a point.
So it went up a point. And I believe that's the highest total in college basketball over the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. If you believe that Kentucky has made even a 5 to 10% improvement on defense,
right?
You're looking. You have so many points to play with.
Let me just interject this: it did go up from 178.5 to 179.5. We're down to 175. So the under money has hit. Okay. The under money has shown up as we would maybe expect.
Yeah, that makes sense because you're talking about a 90-89 game and still coming in as a loser, which is insane in college basketball. But yeah, I think Kentucky money line is where I would. I'm not going to play this game. I don't play Kentucky games.
I do.
I would play the Kentucky money line and lay more of the juice than the 2.5, just because the way Alabama shoots the ball. I expect it to be a close game. I expect it to be a close game the entire time. And even 175, I would still maybe lean under just because I think Kentucky's schematics have changed enough to, again, you're hoping you keep Alabama to 80 points, which sounds a lot, but it is a task.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you there. I'm on Kentucky money line. I do lean under as well. You take the Alabama-Arizona game as your example earlier in the season. Massive total, top 2 offenses in the country. That game stayed well under out in Arizona. Let's go to the other game of the day, noon Eastern tip. Baylor hosts Houston, short home dogs. You got anything in this game, Reegs? And I know Baylor's a team that you're kind of high on in the futures market as well.
Yeah, I would take Baylor here too. It's kind of the story of college basketball this year, right? At least this is how I've been playing it: is spots and home teams.
Absolutely.
Baylor coming off a loss. You have the premier team in the Big 12 coming in. You get a couple points. You're at home. You need a win. Baylor's fighting to stay alive in like the top 3 seeds. This win, I think you're talking about Baylor as a potential 2 seed if, pending what happens the rest of the year.
Yep.
But this is the win that they can sit there and say, hey, we got Houston at least once. I like Baylor a lot. I was looking this morning at some updated lines on DraftKings, and Baylor's 10-1 to make a Final Four. I would take that in, and I'm not someone who's a big future fan until I can see a bracket and kind of predict matchups. But Baylor, they have future NBA players. Walter and Nisi are 2 freshmen who are going to be first-round draft picks.
Yep.
I like Ray J. Dennis. I think he's one of the more underrated point guards in the country. Nunn's there. Bridges is they have it all. Plus Scott Drew, he's won a title. He knows what it takes to get there. At 10-1, I like that bet for them to make a Final Four. And today I like Baylor. Again, I've been playing the coming off a loss type spots at home. It makes all the sense in the world, especially, again, this is just the way college basketball is going this year. How many ranked teams are going to lose on the road, whether it's to a ranked team or an unranked team? How many of these, small favorites are losing as away teams?
Yeah, I like Baylor in the futures market as well, as long as they're, that 2-3 seed that, again, this is why we want to see the bracket, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Be that 2-3 seed that stays out of maybe UConn's bracket, and, I like your odds. So let's, I'll open it up to the futures market a little bit here more. If you got anything else you want to touch on in terms of Final Four to win it all, have at it. But we also have the March Madness tab here on DraftKings Sportsbook.
Yeah.
Bubble props. This is an interesting one because it factors in a lot. Not only what is this team's resume right now, you got to predict would the committee have them in now, but also what are they going to do? So a lot of moving parts, but you could swing and miss. Also some potential good value if you're doing the right things. So what stands out to you? We got a handful of teams, 15 or so teams. What stands out to you, Riggs, in this bubble market?
So I have it up right now, and the one that sticks out the most to me, and I love the team, so I feel bad saying this, but Grand Canyon is plus 180 to miss the tournament.
Yeah.
They are by far the best team in the conference. Don't get me wrong. But you're talking about a 1-bid league having to win the conference tournament to get in. I if you're giving me plus 180, we've already seen them lose a couple games in conference. If you're giving me plus 180 for a team to have to win
you're betting You're betting it as like a yes/no conference tournament prop, essentially.
Basically, right? And what's going to happen when the odds come out for the conference tournament? They're probably going to be close to even, maybe even minus money. I would play that now at plus 180 because you're basically, the field verse is what it comes down to. When you look specifically at Grand Canyon, I don't think they're getting an at-large bid. They have to win to get in. And if they do get an at-large bid, good for them. Like I said, I love the team. I love the fans out there. But at plus 180, it's a little too hard to pass up. The other one that I was looking at, and I'm mad I didn't play this a couple weeks ago when it was plus 190, is Villanova.
Yeah.
They were plus 190 to make the tournament a couple weeks ago. They're now minus 140.
Yep.
They did what they were supposed to during a week stretch of the schedule. They have a tough part coming up. Obviously, UConn tonight. But again, if they miss the tournament and they kind of project where they are, they would be the highest KenPom ranked team to ever miss the tournament.
Yeah.
So I think them betting them in makes sense because of kind of the historical factor, which is something I look at. I don't love laying 140, 145, I believe it is now.
140.
140. Yeah, yep. I don't love laying that high of a number. I'm more mad I missed it when it was plus 190 2 weeks ago. But I think those are the two that you kind of look at.
Well, what I'll say there is that UConn coming off the loss to Creighton, I see no chance that UConn does not win this game tonight. So maybe that moves it a little. Wait, see where Villanova is off after this. Not that, everybody thinks UConn's going to win. So it in theory shouldn't change the number much. But
no,
if it does, you're at least not going to get a worse price. So you can wait and see. Let's talk about that game for a second. I don't know if you have a take on it. We haven't talked about it yet on the show. This is going to be a game. You got Hurley tweeting things out.
He's the best.
That was a blowout. That was, as ugly as it gets. Creighton could not miss. I'm probably going to bet UConn first half here. It's a lot of points, but like UConn minus 6.5 first half. I think they're going to come out at home and just mop the floor with Villanova here. And I like Villanova like you.
Yeah, and I also say maybe the under because Hurley was preaching defense.
Yep.
And Nova's somewhat similar to Creighton, right? Where they'll shoot the ball, they'll play it in. And they're also slower though, right? Like you're not getting a lot of tempo. UConn's a slower team too, so you're not getting the ridiculous pace. But if Hurley's preaching defense, I would lean under because it feels like it's going to be one of those games where UConn's just flying around and they might hold. If they come out what everyone's assuming they do, they could hold Nova to 50 points.
Yep. I share that opinion with you. All right, Riggs, we got like 45 seconds left. Is there anything burning that you got here in college hoops? Anything else you like today?
I think Arizona, again, similar to UConn, they're coming off a loss at home to Washington State. They're laying 16 against Washington, coming off overtime at Arizona State. It's a lot of points. Again, maybe a first half play.
Yeah.
And maybe the opposite of maybe the over because of Arizona's pace, where I wouldn't be surprised if they come out, just Caleb Love's hits 10 threes. That's another one.
All right.
And then I hate it, but Indiana catching 4 against Penn State in a letdown spot.
Ugly spot right there. All right, you can follow him on Twitter, Barstool Riggs, Bobby Regan. Thanks for joining the show. We're going to be back with some baseball next on The Sweat.
All right, thanks.
crazy to wrap your mind around, but MLB opening day, a little more than a month away. Was that March 28th? Hell, the Dodgers and Padres are going to play a couple of regular season games in South Korea in just over 3 weeks from now. So as all 30 teams begin to prepare, there's no better time than now to slide headfirst in the futures market with the DK Network duo of Gary and Thorne and Nick Fryer. Top of the morning to both of you. Nick, how much do you love those new see-through uniforms? Be honest with us.
You figure you would throw this at me first. Yeah, it's an interesting choice, to say the least. Obviously, I am the #1 fashion guy at DraftKings Network,
Clearly.
so I should have, I should have seen this coming. But it's a little unsettling. But I think they should just stick to it, commit to the bit for the entire season, and let's just see what happens. Why not?
Wow. Gary seems to be nodding his head in agreement. Big fan of the pants.
I mean, look, people are talking about baseball, right? Unfortunately, we spent all this time like, man, they got to start talking about baseball on First Take. Now they have to censor the photos, so probably not worth the trade-off. But hey, people are talking about baseball.
It's been a great week to be on Twitter, hasn't it? All right, Gare Bear, let's look ahead to some player totals on the hitting side here. Who and what catches your eye? So talking home runs, stolen bases, RBI hits, whatever direction you want to take it in.
So I'm going to go with Bobby Witt Jr. to go over 28 and a half home runs. This could really be chalked up as simple as former top prospect who really found himself last season, continues to get better and round into what probably should be a fringy Hall of Fame career if he can stay at shortstop, to be perfectly honest. But, Witt hit 30 home runs last season. That's already pretty tempting considering this number is 28 and a half. But it was the stuff he did around that is also really encouraging. He didn't have to sacrifice contact to get that power surge last season. His strikeout rate actually fell pretty precipitously. His O-swing percentage also fell. He's getting better as a hitter, and yet he's still not someone who walks all the time, so you don't have to worry about him being too passive at the plate. Kauffman Stadium, not exactly the greatest place to hit home runs. I understand that, but again, this is someone who had an isolated power above 200 last season. He was in the 95th percentile of all players in expected slugging percentage. And because he hits at the top of that Royals lineup, you can pretty much pencil him in for 650, 670 plate appearances. And with that kind of power and that kind of volume, I think 30 is pretty easy to say he's going to do that again.
Yeah, coming off signing that deal, too. 11 years, $289 million. Guy got paid. Time to back it up here. Fryer, what do you want?
Yeah, so I love the Witt play out of Garion, and I'm going to stick with that number, though, and look at a different guy who had similar production last season. So 28 and a half home runs over for Anthony Santander. He hit 29 last season, 33 in 2022. The big thing for me, though, that kind of jumps out is he had 41 doubles last season. The prior season, again, when he had 33 home runs in 2022, he hit 24 doubles. So we saw a huge increase there, as much as we saw a little bit of a decrease from a home run production standpoint. But still, seeing that overall power boost from him over last season, to me, I think that's going to translate into more home runs this season as he gets more comfortable.
All right, Fryer, let's go to the mound. You are a former collegiate pitcher yourself. This should be your bread and butter here. What's a strikeout total you like right now?
Yeah, so Garion, I know, highlighted one on DraftKingsNetwork.com, and it was really interesting. I don't know if he's going to talk about it today, but I found myself digging a little bit deeper into some of these, some weird totals just to see, because there's certain guys that jump out. You got like Strider, who's an interesting one. I think Nola is a guy who I might be fading in some capacity this year, so I might like his under. There's Dylan Cease, has an odd number considering his production over the years. And then there's Jack Flaherty, who I'm sure everybody expected to hear about when we're talking about strikeout totals and him going to the over. But at 128 and a half, man, I mean, he cruised past this number over 144 innings last season. It was the first season he'd had, close to a full workload in a few years. He crushed this number in 18 and in 19, and he doesn't need, a crazy amount of innings, or at least a full season, to go and get over this number. He 129 innings last year. He went past this mark. You look at 2018 and 2019, even more so. Like, it was even easier. It was like around 109, 114 innings in those seasons. And he's also in a one-year deal situation. This is a prove-it year for him. He's going to come out like gangbusters, and he's going to be ready to go right away.
All right, Gare Bear, you just had Fryer kind of talking up all of these incredible articles you keep dropping. Take us inside one of them right now.
Yeah, it's one of the most puzzling props, I think, on the board, and that is Tyler Glasnow. His strikeout prop is set at 173.5. I'm going to pound the under with that. I mean, Tyler Glasnow is the epitome of a pitcher who cannot stay healthy. His career high in innings came last season. It's 120, and we're not talking about a guy who's 23, 24 years old. This will be his 9th MLB season. He is 30 years old. There is a solid track record here of a guy who cannot pitch 150 innings in a season. And I think the fact that he ended up with the Dodgers is also pretty important here. Los Angeles is going to prioritize the playoffs before anything else. They've got so many starting pitchers. Now, some of them won't be ready until midseason, but Clayton Kershaw is going to come back at some point. You've got a bunch of prospects like Gavin Stone and Bobby Miller and Emmett Sheehan who can come in and throw innings. They've got like 11 guys who could probably be trusted to throw major league innings at some point this season. I think they'll try to keep Glasnow healthy. I understand he has a 35% strikeout rate since 2019, but here's the big stat that really showcases Tyler Glasnow and his inability to stay healthy. Since the start of that 2019 season, Jacob deGrom has 16 more starts than Tyler Glasnow.
No, he does
Jacob
not.
deGrom never leaves a hospital bed. So I don't know how that's possible. So you take the under on the Tyler Glasnow strikeouts. He's never reached this number in his career. It's not going to start in 2024.
Yeah, I saw that like the LA Times recently wrote about like the Dodgers are hopeful Glasnow can be an ace. And it's like, I don't really know about that with the health issues there. Along those same lines though, Gare Bear, league leader, your favorite league leader bet right now in the DraftKings Sportsbook.
So I'm going to go back to another young guy, someone coming off winning National League Rookie of the Year, and that's Corbin Carroll. He is 50-1 to lead the league in hits. And while I will say that Ronald Acuna Jr., who's, I believe, plus 850 to repeat as league leader in hits, that's not a bad bet either. He's a pretty good player. If you kind of take the archetype, if you take the lessons we learned from Ronald Acuna Jr., you can apply them to Corbin Carroll. He's a former top prospect. He's someone who should be coming into his own in his second full season in the major leagues. He's someone who hits leadoff for the Diamondbacks. So you got to think if he stays healthy, he's looking at 700, 720 plate appearances, which is the kind of volume you need to lead the league in hits. And he's also someone who I think can exploit his speed a little bit more. Remember, Corbin Carroll, 80 grade speed as a prospect, 99th percentile sprint speed last season, yet he only had a 325 BABIP. He only had 14 infield hits. I just think through sheer regression and luck, he could be someone who you look back at his career 10 years from now and go, wow, he had like a 385 BABIP that season. It's kind of an outlier, but that's within his range of outcomes because he's as fast as he is and makes as good contact as he does. So I think at 50-1, to take a guy with that much talent and say that it could all come together in his second season, I don't think that's that unlikely.
All right, Fryer, what direction do you want to take us in?
On the note of Corbin Carroll, I think his hits total right now is set at 161.5, and he had 161 last season. So if you like what Garion's breaking down right there alone, I mean, it's not going to be as big of a payout, but still, I think that's a good play there to take the over. But as for your question, Emerson, league leader, I'm going to go with a guy who's been, the bridesmaid the last 2 years in the home run races when it comes to having at least the most overall across both leagues, and that's Kyle Schwarber. He's plus 750 to lead all of baseball in home runs, 46 in 2022. Obviously, he led the NL, but in this conversation, he was behind, of course, Aaron Judge. And then last season, he was second in the NL, only to Matt Olson, who obviously went off. But Schwarber himself, 47 home runs last season. The guy is a model of consistency, both in terms of his home run output and his batting average. But then you look at his on-base percentage, it's like, well, he kind of knows what he's doing. And even when we saw the dip that he had last season in terms of batting average, we saw his on-base percentage improve as well. So look, the guy has found what his approach, what he wants to do, sacrifice the hits, still get on base, but then provide as much power as humanly possible. As long as he keeps doing what he's doing, which he's shown back-to-back years, hey, I can do this, then he is going to be in the conversation to at least lead all of baseball. Then you just got to hope, hey, hopefully somebody else doesn't pop off and go nuts like they have the last 2 years. But even then, he is definitely capable of doing that as well, given what he's done the past 2 seasons.
All right, guys, about a minute to go in this segment. We'll dive into a lot more futures here coming up in the coming weeks. But right now, team total you like. Fryer.
Yeah, so the Royals, obviously, Garion talked about Bobby Witt quite a bit, and obviously he's done well, and he shows power, athleticism. He's got a complete game, and I love watching him go to work. And with that being said, we've seen some talent added around him, so I actually like the Royals to go over 73.5 wins on the season. That is a huge boost, of course, from their output last season, where they only had 56 wins, but you got Reagans, you got Seth Lugo, you got Michael Wacha, then you add Schreiber to the bullpen, and more importantly, Will Smith, who's won 3 World Series in a row with 3 teams. So maybe the Royals don't just win 74 games. Maybe they go absolutely loco. I don't know, but either way, I just need to get 74 wins, and I think that's very attainable.
All right, Nick, Garion, sorry about that, Gare Bear. We're out of time. Nick talks too much, but we're going to do that DFS thing that everyone at home is watching likes tomorrow with you two on the show. For now, after this 240-second break, the Cooligans are stopping by talking Messi and football. Welcome back to The Sweat, everybody. Football is life. The 2024 MLS season, guess what? It's underway. It's going to be tough to match that year full of memorable moments and historic achievements we witnessed last year. No one better to talk to about it than the Cooligans, DraftKings Network stars, Alexis Guerreros, Christian Polanco. What's up, fellas? Congrats on making your Sweat debut this morning.
Thank you. Bright and
It's
early.
an honor.
Yeah.
Bright and early. Yeah. Are you guys?
I've never sweat this early, so this is kind of nice.
Yeah, right.
I have when I ate too much cheese the night before.
Yeah, cheese or maybe a few too many adult beverages. Hey, dude, so we got the Champions League round of 16 underway. EPL, it's a battle at the top of the table here. But you know what? We're starting in the States, baby, because of MLS and this dude called Messi, whose Inter Miami team kicked off the season with a 2-0 win over Real Salt Lake. Guys, tell me, what kind of impact have y'all seen the Messi effect have on not only MLS, just the game in general here in the States?
It's sort of made MLS feel so much more similar to like large sporting events like Olympics or stuff like that. Like people are trying to get tickets without even knowing anything about the sport. They just want to be a part of the spectacle. It's huge. And I think one of the big things that people keep forgetting is that MLS switched last year to Apple TV Plus, which is a global. So the whole world is watching this. There's no blackouts or anything that anyone can watch this. It's pretty insane.
And we see the strategy bringing Messi before 2026, a World Cup year, a World Cup in the U.S. I mean, this is all just in a move, a strategy to get more people into the sport. And I mean, clearly it's working because we're talking about him right now, clearly.
Yeah, for sure. Christian, is Miami the team to come out of the East? Is that the team you would back right now?
It feels, look, as MLS experts as we are, I would say it feels like because you see the roster, you see Messi, Busquets, Suarez, you want to feel like Inter Miami will win the East or possibly win MLS Cup, but it just they had to move a lot of pieces just to get the roster to be compliant, and that's my main concern, defending. I know they're going to score a bunch of goals, they're going to look great, but can they defend for a full MLS season? And when there's going to be international breaks, Copa America, a lot of these guys are going to be playing all over the world. I don't know. So my answer is probably no. I don't think they're going to be first in the East.
Yeah, Alexis,
it's a lot of travel and turf. People forget you got to play on turf here. That's not easy on knees. And when everyone in your team is 75 and up,
True. And Alexis, I think one thing we've learned in the past too is MLS hardware, the silverware, it doesn't come necessarily from star power, right? It comes from depth.
Yeah, very much so. And that's something that Miami doesn't have right now. The way the league structure is, if you go top heavy, if you pay your big stars a lot of money, that doesn't leave you a lot of money to get comparable stars below that. So your depth is really going to be tested, especially when your stars are older. But they also have Tata Martino, who's their manager, who used to manage Argentina. He used to manage Barcelona. He also used to manage Atlanta United here in MLS and won MLS Cup. So he has the pedigree. He understands that the league here is different than everywhere else. It's not just about trying to win as many games throughout the regular season. It's about really trying to catch momentum heading into the playoffs. And as the league goes on, it's a summer league, so it's hot to play in. Can this team, does it have the gas in the knees and in the lower back to catch momentum heading into the playoffs? I know Messi will, but the stars around him, I'm not so sure.
And Alexis, as we mentioned, the depth angle of it all, we saw FC Cincinnati, Columbus Crew, they kind of proved that last season. So right now, who's got the best shot at making sure Miami doesn't hoist the trophy in the end?
I mean,
that's a great question. If Christian and I know that, we would put our money in DraftKings right now.
A lot of people are talking about Orlando City.
Okay.
There's a couple teams. LAFC is always, in the conversation.
One that you mentioned, FC Cincinnati, was the best team defensively, and they got even better. They got Miles Robinson.
Yeah, so they lost their striker, and Brandon Vasquez, who went to Monterrey in Liga MX. So there's going to be teams that give Miami some trouble. We saw it in the game against RSL, where Messi is chipping the ball over a dead guy essentially, and there's always going to be the spectacle, and he's going to be nearly unstoppable regardless of how old he is. These young guys can't even keep up with him, but it's going to be injuries are going to be a concern, but there's so many strong teams this year. A lot of teams have brought in really, really great reinforcements. So MLS is always it's probably one of the most unpredictable leagues. You know, I've bet on it on DraftKings from time to time, and it hasn't worked out for me. Sometimes it has. So it's kind of a toss up from time to time. But the beginning of the MLS season is probably one of the most unpredictable. We need about 4 or 5 games to really get a grasp of what the season is going to look like.
Gentlemen, it's called gambling for a reason, you know? Christian, a reduced slate of Premier League action. It takes place like this weekend. There's going to be no shortage of drama and entertainment, though, especially like across the top flight here, man. Which games do you have your eyes on this morning? I believe there's 4 of them that are going to get going around 10 o'clock Eastern time here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing an Everton shirt.
Yeah,
I'm an Everton
are.
fan. It's always terrible. I usually, ruin my mornings.
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep doing this to myself.
He should be deducted 10 seconds of speaking in this interview.
Look, I'm obviously going to watch the Everton match. I'll probably have a couple other screens going on. I usually tend to try to watch the Americans that are playing in the Premier League. Hopefully Gio Reyna gets some minutes for Nottingham Forest against Aston Villa. But look, the 10 a.m. There's 4 games. United Fulham should be obviously very entertaining.
That's going to be the big one. That's the big one to watch.
Yeah.
They have a new owner. There's a lot of impetus on this team doing well, and they're starting to do well, and they're a perennial winner, and they haven't been so. But I'm waiting for the 3 o'clock match, baby. Come on, Arsenal versus Newcastle. This is the, as we like to call in the hood, the lick back. They got us on a VAR, on a refereeing mistake last time. So now is that rebound, and we need it because we just lost to Porto in Champions League.
Yeah.
So this is a big one.
Alexis, is this more like a 3-team race at the top of the table here? How exciting is this coming down the stretch?
Yeah, you'd have to say so. I mean, this feels like the first time in a long time that the league is this competitive. I can see this actually coming down to either something of a draw that decides the league, or maybe goal differential, which is the second option after points. I mean, to look at where Liverpool is with having played an extra game, only being 5 points ahead of third place Arsenal. Both Arsenal and Man City will play their 26th match this weekend. This is going to get really, really tight. No team can slip up at this point, and everyone's just expecting Manchester City to take over. Liverpool dealing with so many injuries. Their injury list, if that was a starting 11, they might be in first place in this league. That's how it really is really difficult. What Klopp is doing in his last season is absolutely insane. I mean, I hope my manager says it's his last season just so we could get the emotional bump, Yeah. But stay. I want Mikel Arteta to stay.
Christian, what are you looking forward to, as the season nears an end here?
Well, like I said, I pay attention to a lot of the Americans in the Premier League. Fulham has players like Anthony Robinson. Obviously, Tim Ream. I'm hoping Matt Turner gets back in goal for Nottingham Forest. But look, I got to be honest. I'm solely focused on Everton staying up. My emotions are so deeply entwined with this club. We've gone to Goodison Park. We filmed a documentary for Everton versus Arsenal at Goodison Park, which was a very memorable experience. But this is feeling like, we know that the top of the table usually looks the same, and I think with the drama around Everton and also Nottingham Forest dealing with Nottingham Forest dealing with a possible points deduction, Everton having been deducted 10 points, it's just a ridiculous soap opera of mismanaged clubs and mismanaged finances. And I'm like, why do I know the profit and sustainability rules about this sport? It's absurd. I'm like too invested.
I know that, and I don't know where my checkbook is. You know what I mean?
So there's a lot of drama because it looks like this year is clubs are being made an example of, because everybody's maybe gonna go for Man City. And they're like 115 charges of profit and sustainability and financial fair play. And we should be on like CNBC, dude. This is crazy that we are talking about all this stuff.
Squawk box?
For real.
But I'm too invested.
But instead, you're on DraftKings Network and VSiN, baby. It doesn't get any better than that.
Let's go.
I agree.
Which brings me to my last question here. Alexis, hook us up with what's coming up on the Cooligans. When's your next episode drop? When we can catch it, man?
We got episodes that drop every Monday and Thursday. You could you listen to it wherever you listen. You could watch on the DraftKings network if you want. It's absolutely awesome. We got a bunch of big guests coming up. I'm not sure which ones are coming out next, but trust us, we have some incredible interviews. We just dropped with one with Brendan Hunt from Ted Lasso, which was incredible.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, man. And he was in studio. It was really cool. I wasn't. Christian interviewed him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but no, it's been a blast doing this show. So I mean, it's a comedy show for soccer fans. So we welcome anybody that likes to laugh.
Yeah, I love it. I got to get my wife onto that because she absolutely loved Ted Lasso. Like, really uncomfortably obsessed with it, actually. Anywho, gentlemen, it was great having you on. Thanks for sweating out all the cheese you had the night before. And thanks for making some time for us this Saturday morning. We will wrap up the show with more February frenzy and college basketball bets next. Final block of the sweats. Final time we will remind you this morning until tomorrow morning when we remind you again that we have an NCAA tournament special. Monday evening, Julian, March 18th, the day after St. Patrick's Day. The day
after Selection Sunday is the way I look at it.
I was just about to say that.
Your simple mind thinks of it a little different than I do.
I certainly do. So that's going to be 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock Eastern time, Monday night, March 18th. So
I'll be there.
Maybe you're going to be a little fatigued throughout the day. You can wake up and we'll get you caught up on everything you missed on Selection Sunday. You will be there.
If they're waking up for a 6 to 9 p.m. show, that's really
No, well, I'm just saying, with St. Patrick's Day, sometimes you make bad decisions. Maybe you know.
I'll help you make good decisions for March Madness. Hopefully you're not
Bingo.
If you're sleeping until 6 p.m., you made some really bad decisions.
I've been in that position before, unfortunately.
You have.
Let's make some good decisions here for February Frenzy as we wrap up the show with some college basketball bets around the Big 12, the Big East, and the Big 10. So one more time, remind the folks at home, Houston versus Baylor, one of the better games of the day, maybe the game of the day. Now the Bears plus 124 at home here are strong play in the money line, but given the spread, you're going to be taking the points. That's the preferred option here for bettors, you think?
Yeah, I'll take 2.5, protect against a tight game. We talked about this one a couple times today, so I'll be quick. But Houston, 15-0 at home, different team on the road. That's where their 3 losses have come. They're 4-3 straight up. 1-6 against the spread. They're not covering numbers. Cougars just 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 games, so maybe a little overvalued versus a Baylor team, a little undervalued. They're 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 games. Baylor, tough place to play. It'll be a wild building. They're 13-1 straight up at home. They're 9-5 against the spread at home. Perfect bounce back spot. Baylor goes to BYU earlier in the week, loses a game that they were in. Houston hosts Iowa State earlier in the week, gets revenge for one of their road losses when they played at the Cyclones. I think Baylor comes back, gets this one, wins this one at home, but I will gladly take some points.
All right, Texas and Kansas. So Texas hasn't played well enough as of late to really think that it can pull off the upset. So maybe avoid that enticing plus 320 money line odds here?
Yeah, this one was as low as 6. I would have laid 6 with Kansas. 8.5, I'm passing, but Texas is a tough team to read this year. Back and forth on wins and losses. Coming off a win, but they didn't cover against K-State. I think this is going to be a hard spot for them. They're 3-4 straight up and against the spread on the road. But Kansas smashes at home. They're 13-0 straight up, 6-1 against the spread. Coming off a big road win against Oklahoma, but they've had the full week off to get ready for this one. At this point, it's Kansas money line for me. That's my favorite parlay piece of the day, but it's a pretty big number there, so you're going to want to put it with, I don't mind if you want to put it with the Celtics on the Saturday night game.
Look at you. Wee, bro.
Yeah, there's some good spots there.
I mean, K-State hasn't been smashing anything as of late. They're going to be hosting BYU, and K-State lost 7 of its last 8 games after a 4-1 conference start here, dude.
Oh, yeah. K-State's lost 7 of 8, so why are we not going to bet them to win this one against a ranked team? BYU is off that monster win that I just referenced against Baylor.
Okay.
But take them on the road. They're, Provo's a different place. You take them on the road, they're a different team. 2-5 straight up, 1-6 against the spread on the road this season. K-State is a dog. Watch out. 7-4 against the spread as a dog this season. They've covered 3 of their last 4 games. They covered as a road dog at BYU in a recent matchup. And one of the that one loss in their last 4, that was on a buzzer beater to TCU. You want to take Kansas State as a home dog. They're 2-0 straight up, 2-0 against the spread. They beat Kansas. They can beat good competition at home. They're covering by 6 points per game, by the way, in those 2 that they won and covered as a home dog. K-State, ultimate get-right spot.
Well, don't cry because it's over, Jewel. Smile because it happened.
Okay.
The Bedlam rivalry is over as we know it. Oklahoma's moving to the SEC. Oklahoma State's going to remain in the Big 12. I don't know. Oklahoma looks significantly better here on paper. Could be a closer battle, though, than most think. What do you expect?
Crumple the paper up, throw it out. Brutal year for Oklahoma State on the year. They've been awful on the road, but serviceable at home. Now, Oklahoma has been bad on the road, 2-4 straight up and against the spread this season. And you want to go back to last year. They're 3-11, their last 14 road games overall. Oklahoma also just 1-8 against the spread in their last 9 at OK State. So we know rivalry-wise, Home teams dominated this one. OU's also dinged up, and OK State might be onto something lately. OK State has covered 5 in a row, including 2 outright wins in their last 2 games as dogs. They beat BYU as a 5.5-point dog. They beat Cincy as a 10.5-point dog. They shifted from a dog to favorite here. I think OK State is moving in the right direction, and they get this one.
Well, the good news is as we go to America's team, UCF here. First year in the Big 12 has had its pluses, but also plenty of minuses. So UCF's lost 6 of their last 7, 4 of 7 against the spread, and taken on Texas Tech, which has won 3 of its last 4 games, helping them now earn a number 23 ranking in the AP poll.
Haven't bet this one, but it's UCF or pass for me. Pick'em game essentially here. UCF has a loss to avenge to Texas Tech, and they, like you said, they haven't been playing well lately, but they're on a 5-2 against the spread run at home. Texas Tech isn't playing that well either. You mentioned the win, but they're just 1-6 against the spread in their last 7. That one was a dominant win over Kansas, but they have not shown up in those other games. And I mentioned Kansas on the road. They haven't been as good, especially in those Monday road games after playing at home on Saturday for Kansas. Texas Tech is a great home team, but they're just 2-5 straight up and against the spread on the road. So you're America's team or pass.
The Knights, okay. Well, that sounds good. I'm old enough to remember when a few weeks ago you texted me and said, UCF may be good, dude. And I said, I know, bro. And then they have sucked since then.
Yeah, bro.
UConn gets upset by Creighton earlier in the week, and now we'll host Villanova. Good bounce back spot. They're going to be playing angry. Do you like any bets here?
Yeah, no numbers or ATS trends or anything here. Although Nova's 3-6 on the road, so getting them on the road, better to fade them there. But number one, UConn, you go on the road, you get embarrassed. Creighton shoots the lights out. Hurley sends out tweets. They're preaching defense. Saturday night home game. UConn first half, -6.5. I think they're going to come out and just smash Villanova early here, take a double-digit lead into the locker room. Love UConn first half, -6.5.
All right, let's talk some Seton Hall versus Butler here. Seton Hall 8-2 against the Bulldogs since February of 2019. A chance to extend that success later on tonight.
Yeah, Seton Hall opened 3.5, got down to 2.5. I probably should have taken it then, but it wasn't one of my favorite games of the day, so I kind of let it sit. What are we up to now? Is it 5, 5.5? That number got pretty big. 4.5. All right, it's leveled off a little bit. Strong lean to Seton Hall. I think it might be too many. I wanted the 2.5. Huge bubble game. Butler off the loss to Nova. It's now lost 4 of its last 5 and 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 games for Butler. Seton Hall's trending in the right direction. They've won 4 of 5. Butler's 3-6 on the road. Seton Hall 11-3 at home. Strong lean to Seton Hall. 4.5 is probably a little too many compared to what I wanted to lay.
All right, why are we talking Iowa, Illinois here? Illinois 9.5-point favorites at home and -500 on the money line.
Yeah, one of those perfect spots for Illinois. Ton of points. So thinking maybe a money line parlay piece for Illinois, or we lay 5 in the first half with Illinois. Iowa's off a huge upset win as a similar price dog, 9.5, 10 points at Michigan State. They win that game outright just when we think Sparty has it going. Illinois blew a game up 7 with under a minute to go on the road at Penn State. They're going to bounce back at home. Kind of project some of that UConn early dominance. I would lay the first half number, but I like the UConn first half play a little bit.
There were a couple games we didn't get to earlier in the show that we had here on the rundown.
That's why I'm going rapid fire so we can get to them.
Yeah, that's true. So we have Washington and Arizona as we go back to the Pac-12 here.
Pretty similar spot to UConn. Arizona loses at home in a tough game to Washington State that might cost them the Pac-12 regular season. Now you got Washington coming in, who is just the team that's going to be served up, I would think, to Arizona. So a big bounce back spot for Arizona after that bad loss. I would look maybe first half team total. You're laying 9.5 first half here. You're expecting a double-digit halftime lead. This one's a little more inflated than I thought. So if I'm passing on one of these, again, I like UConn more than Arizona, but something Arizona first half related, probably first half team total over would be the way I'd look at it.
And then we've got the City of Angels crosstown matchup between USC and UCLA. So tonight's showcasing of 2 teams on really opposite ends of the spectrum here, both statistically and in the standings, Jules.
Yeah, USC is 1-8 straight up, 3-6 against the spread on the road. They haven't won a game as a dog all season. They're 0-10 in that spot. They've really unraveled. This USC team is not very good. UCLA keeps showing improvement. They had won 6 in a row prior to that Utah loss we talked about earlier in the show. Lost it pretty much at the buzzer in a game they had in hand. Sets up a strong bounce back spot at home for UCLA against a USC team that has not been very good. So two teams going in the opposite direction. I laid 4.5 with UCLA. I'm good up to 5.5. They're also a good money line parlay piece.
I think we hit every game that we had in the rundown today for the first time this season.
See what happens when it's just,
Look, hey, I want to shake your hand. Nice work.
No
I think weakest segment today was the one that you hosted with Bobby Reagan. Bobby was great, but
probably the best hosted segment of the
you
show.
inspired all of us. And you
Loyola Chicago minus 3.5 against George Mason.
Is that the Sister Jean team?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just added
She's still
another
kicking
game.
it, right? I love her. She's great. Okay, everybody. We will see you back here tomorrow and tons more of sports betting talk.